everyone, my name is Iris and I run the blog lifeofiris.com. We talk about cruises, travel, and life. Today we're going to be talking about cruising to Alaska and specifically how to choose the right Alaskan cruise for you and your travel companions. We're going to be doing this by looking at a few popular Alaskan cruise itineraries and talking about who they might be right for. Now, while all Alaskan cruise itineraries are fantastic because you're getting to explore the beautiful state that is Alaska, they are not necessarily all the right cruise for you and what you're looking for in your cruise vacation. If you want to be helicoptering onto glaciers, ziplining through rainforests, and maybe going out salmon fishing, but your travel companions are really looking to go shopping, they're looking for more of a relaxing, go to the spa kind of cruise, it's important to find the cruise that works and suits everyone that you're traveling with. I'm hoping that after watching this video, you are a little better equipped to do so, especially when looking at Alaskan cruise itineraries. Now, Alaska is a very popular cruise destination. In 2019, there were 1.3 million cruise visitors to Alaska. And there are a lot of options for cruise lines that go to Alaska. There's actually historically have been about 20, and those range from your mainstream and premium cruise lines to luxury lines, some international lines, as well as National Geographic, which has some exploration cruises. And so if your favorite cruise line is Carnival, Celebrity, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, Princess, Holland America Line, whether it's Seabourn, Regent Seven Seas, some of the luxury lines, Silver Sea, Oceania, Viking, most likely there is a cruise for you on one of their cruises. Today we're going to be talking about itineraries so that if you do find one, if your favorite cruise line is sailing in Alaska, I can help you figure out which cruise is the right one to go on. All right, so the first itinerary that we're going to talk about is a round trip out of Seattle. And now there's 5 main types of cruises that you're going to see. They are not going to all appear in this 2021 season. This video is more for 2022 and going forward into 2023. There are restrictions going into this 2021 season. We don't know how they're going to play out with the coronavirus pandemic. And so rather than focus on what might not happen for 2021, we're going to look forward. We're going into the future. It's going to be great. We're going to go see the glaciers. We're going to see the salmon. We're going to see some bears, whales, all the good stuff. All right, so our first one, this is a round trip out of Seattle. It's going to be a 7-day cruise. The sample itinerary that I'm showing you is through Holland America Line on their ship, the Eurodam. This itinerary is for June of 2022. You will see itineraries like this that will go throughout the entire Alaskan season. Typically, the Alaskan season runs from May until September. I will give you a word of cautionary advice. In May and September, you are more likely to experience some true Alaskan weather. The majority of Southeast Alaska that you'll be sailing in is a rainforest. And as such, you're likely going to get some rain. And so it tends to be more rain in either May or September, but you'll definitely still get it throughout the summer. But if you're really prone to having the weather negatively impact your cruise vacation, then I would recommend choosing a cruise that's happening more in the summertime. All right, so who is this itinerary best for? So this itinerary is going to be best for families, first-time cruisers, or people that haven't traveled very much. The fact that it's round trip out of Seattle, so a US airport, makes it a little less daunting for someone that might not have cruised before, that might not have flown before. And so this can be a good kind of starter itinerary for someone both to cruising and to Alaska. You also don't spend a lot of time out in wide open ocean. I know that for some people, if it's their first cruise, they're a little worried about being so far from land. So for instance, sailing across the Atlantic or the Pacific is probably not a great choice for them, but an itinerary like this where you're not too far from land at any given point, that's all relative of course, but you're not too far, can be a good one to kind of ease people in. Now this itinerary, so you'd start in Seattle, you're gonna make your way up to Juneau, Glacier Bay, Icy Strait Point, Sitka, and then down to Ketchikan, and then make your way back south. You're gonna stop in Victoria, British Columbia, and then return to Seattle. Now, with this itinerary, you'll notice that as you're down towards the Seattle, Victoria area, that the ship heads out towards the ocean. So in Alaska, or Alaskan Cruises, they're known for sailing in the Inside Passage. And so if you're booking a round trip cruise out of Seattle, there's going to be a ton of scenic cruising to be had. You're going to see glaciers when you're in Glacier Bay. It's a very scenic sailing as you go into Juneau, coming out of Ketchikan, out of Sitka. Alaska in itself is beautiful. The Inside Passage they're referring to is just a little north of Victoria, if you're looking on the map. And so if that's something that is on your bucket list and you choose a cruise out of Seattle, you have chosen the wrong cruise. I have in fact met a couple that was on the ship expecting to see the Inside Passage and was very frustrated that they were not seeing that. And so if that's something that you're looking for, please be mindful that a Seattle round trip is probably not going to be the itinerary that's going to best suit what you are looking for with your scenic cruising needs. Now, the majority of itineraries that go out of Seattle for a one-week cruise will typically stop in 3 places in Alaska. This one stops in 4, and we're going to talk about that briefly. So your first stop in Juneau is a late arrival and a late sail. Now that's not going to negatively impact how you're going to be able to enjoy Juneau. You'd still be able to go to the Mendenhall Glacier. You'd be able to go out for a whale watching tour, have the option to go helicoptering onto a glacier. Those are all tours that I personally have done. I highly recommend the helicopter one if you are able. It's incredible. And so getting there later, staying later is not a bad thing. It gives you an opportunity to have dinner ashore if you'd like. Go get some fabulous crab somewhere. So that is not a hindrance at all. If you see that for going into Juneau a little bit later, it's not a bad thing. It does mean that when you get there, everyone is going to probably try to get off the ship at the exact same time. And so for instance, if the ship is arriving at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, everyone will have had their lunch. The buffet is going to be very busy leading up to that. And then everyone rushes ashore, which is fine. These ships are designed for that. Juneau is most of the time you have a dock versus tendering. It is not impossible to tender in Juneau. They do hold quite a number of ships, but tendering is possible. For the most part, you're not going to experience that. For the most part, you're going to be docking there. All right, so then you continue up to Glacier Bay and Icy Strait Point, and they are combining both of these in the same day. Now, Glacier Bay is going to be your day to go out and look at a glacier. So it's going to be very scenic sailing. The ship will typically arrive at the glacier and have one side of the ship, so say the port side to start out with, facing the glacier. Might stay like that for an hour, maybe less, but it depends. It depends on all of the conditions of the day, and this is a decision that's based on the bridge team and what they feel is the safest for everyone involved, and also based on advice from the local pilot and the locals to Glacier Bay, because obviously we want to preserve the beautiful place that we're in. So the ship may stay with the port side facing and then rotate so that the starboard side can then look at the glacier for a while if there are people that are on their balconies that don't want to head out to the passenger decks and do the swap as it goes from side to side, which is fine and it's great. So you'll have that for a few hours, and then after sailing out of there, you will go to a place called Icy Strait Point. Now, Icy Strait Point, the call that you have to that on this itinerary is from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. That might seem like not a lot of time, but I think it will be fine. The main attraction when you're in Icy Strait Point, aside from there are some cultural opportunities for you to learn about the native people of Alaska, but aside from that, there is a giant zip line that you can go down. I will say that even if you don't get off the ship, I have seen whales from where the ship docks in Icy Strait Point, just on the ship, whales everywhere. So don't discount that just because it's only a 4-hour port. It is beautiful. Even if you don't plan on going on the zip line, go get off the ship and just go for a little walk, because there is some beautiful nature to be seen. All right, then you continue down to Sitka. Sitka is a beautiful little town. I love Sitka. There is a dock there, but you do have to take a shuttle bus into town. There are some cruise lines where you will sit out at anchor and tender in, and the tender will bring you directly into town. I would not anticipate that on this particular itinerary, but Sitka's great spot for otters. For going to look at the sea otters. They're adorable. So Sitka, excellent cruise port. It's not going to be as touristy. This one feels quite a lot like a small town. When you're in Juneau, you get off the ship, there are more diamond stores than you know what to do with. Juneau has definitely been, especially in the downtown area, built up to accommodate the fact that there are 5 or 6 ships in port on any one day, and to try to take advantage of those tourist dollars, which I don't blame them for at all, to be honest. But it's definitely, it can feel a bit touristy when you get there. Sitka definitely feels more like a small town. I quite enjoy Sitka. There's a lot of goodness in Sitka. It's just a cute town. And then as you head down, Ketchikan is going to be another one of those touristy kind of places. However, if you have someone on your itinerary that likes to do some shopping and someone else that likes to explore, Ketchikan is local to the Misty Fjords, and you can take a float plane tour there. So you can take a cruise out through the fjords and then take a float plane up and go over them, which is also spectacular. So zip lining. I've gone ziplining in the rainforest in Ketchikan. It can be a really fun stop, but unless you are actively making plans to go out from just the small downtown area, it's going to feel like a tourist shop. There's a lot of diamond stores. Once again, there's a lot of tourist shops, lots of t-shirts, and so I was on a cruise, and I was sitting and I was chatting with this family, and they were lamenting the fact that they went on this 7-day Alaskan cruise and they didn't really feel like they saw that much of Alaska. And I said, well, what did you do when you were in port? Oh, well, we just walked around. And they were really hoping to be able to just get off the ship and feel like they're out in the wilderness of Alaska. And there's a couple itineraries with stops that will make you feel more like that. Icy Strait Point gives you a bit of that feeling. Sitka gives you the small town feeling. The itinerary that these folks happened to be on, they weren't disappointed by Juneau and Ketchikan, but they didn't make a plan when they were in Juneau and Ketchikan other than get off the ship and walk around. And then when what they found off the ship was the diamond stores and the more touristy things, they were disappointed. And I don't want that to happen to you. There are spectacular things that you can do in places like Ketchikan and Juneau, but you need to make a plan. Another great part of having these locations on this itinerary is it does give the opportunity for different people in your travel group to find things that appeal to them. So say someone in your travel group wants to stay on the ship in the morning, or they're staying on the ship for a little bit. They're going to have a little bit of a spa, then they're going to just get off the ship and do a wander. They're going to maybe sit and have a little crab biscuit, Tracy's Crab Shack, and they might stroll into a few of the shops. They're just looking for a nice casual day. And someone else wants to go on a bike tour around the lake that's at the base of Mendenhall Glacier, or maybe they want to go kayaking. So these ports can be fantastic to have on an itinerary because they can appeal to a broad range of interests. But you need to do your due diligence and your research that if you know that you don't want to get off the ship and just go shopping, if you want to do something else, you need to be making the plan for that. Because if you are getting off the ship in some of these ports thinking, I'm going to be right in the depths of Alaska like I see on the TV, yes, there's going to be beautiful mountains all around you, but there are going to be tourist shops. So this itinerary is an excellent taste of Alaska. It is great for families. As it's a 1 week long cruise, you're going to see a lot of families on board. If you are someone that does not like to cruise with a lot of kids on board, a 1 week Alaskan cruise out of either Seattle or Vancouver in the middle of the summer is not the cruise for you. I have seen people that have come on for a 1 week cruise in the middle of July, expecting there to be no kids on board on certain cruise lines where they are known for having a slightly older demographic, and then they're disappointed that there's kids on board. It's Alaska in the summertime. If you are expecting to not have a lot of kids on board, you need to look for a cruise line that specifically doesn't allow children on board, or heavily discuss it with your travel advisor as to what the demographics for that cruise are looking like. Because even on cruises where you won't expect a lot of kids, it's a very popular cruise destination. There will be a lot of kids, so be prepared for that. All right, so that's your round trip from Seattle, 7-day. This is a fantastic itinerary to give you a taste of Alaska. It's great for someone that is either new to travel or new to cruising. It also is great for people that are looking for something that's going to give a lot of options for what the travel group might want to do. Okay, the next itinerary we're going to look at is from Vancouver Roundtrip. So this is going to be a 7-day round trip out of Vancouver. This particular one is on Royal Caribbean International's Serenade of the Seas. This itinerary is being offered in August of 2022. Now, as you look at this itinerary, the first thing that I want you to see that's the difference between Vancouver Roundtrip and Seattle Roundtrip is that it notes the inside passage. And so if you're looking at a Vancouver Roundtrip itinerary, most of the time you're going to be able to cruise that inside passage. I am going to put up another itinerary that you can see here, and this itinerary is offered on Princess, and you'll notice that there's a little note on the bottom of the itinerary that says that Royal Class ships, it says Royal Class ship route, and so the Royal Class ships are actually going to head out into open water. So it is not a guarantee that if you book out of Vancouver that you will see the inside passage or that you will sail through the inside passage. Please be mindful of that and take note of that on the various itineraries. If it is something that is a deal breaker for you, make sure that you're on a cruise that has planned for that. Okay, so this itinerary, it's going to head to Sitka, Juneau. So those two ports we discussed on the previous itinerary. It's also going to stop in Skagway. And Skagway is a really fun port that has it's a relatively small downtown. It feels like a small town, which is really nice. It also has a beautiful train tour that you can do. A lot of the times when you think of train tours in Alaska, you're thinking of the ones that head up to Denali that are gonna take a little bit longer. This is a great way to have a scenic train ride in addition to your cruise experience. So Skagway is a wonderful port to see on any itinerary because you can have that train experience. All right, it's also going to stop in Haines, Alaska. Haines is a relatively small port, but it's a nice port to have. This itinerary actually, because you're getting Sitka, Skagway, and Haines, it's a lot more of the kind of small places in Alaska, which is really nice. And as with all Alaskan cruise itineraries, you will be having at least a day looking at a glacier. In this case, it is Tracy Arm Fjord. Tracy Arm, beautiful sail-in. Again, you'll have the glacier. The ship will face one direction typically, then rotate around and face the other. And then you have a day of scenic cruising on the way back to Vancouver. Now on the Seattle itinerary, you might have noticed that Victoria, British Columbia was included on the way back to Seattle, whereas it is not on this itinerary. The reason being is that if a ship leaves from the United States and is not flagged in the United States, it has to call at a foreign port before returning. That's something that's called the Jones Act. And since this itinerary is leaving from Vancouver, which is in Canada. It does not have, it already has its foreign port. It's starting in a foreign port and then going up to Alaska in the US and then returning down. So, so it already has that covered. Now, this itinerary is great for largely the same groups as before. So it's great for families, it's great for people that are new to traveling, that are new to cruising. It gives you a great taste of Alaska. I would say this itinerary in particular is a little bit better for someone that's wanting to explore a bit more. There's not going to be as much shopping to do when you're ashore, and it has a little bit more scenic cruising by way of the Inside Passage. It also has Skagway, which is a personal favorite. All right, the next itinerary, so this one is that Princess one that I had put up just a second ago, and we're going to talk about this a bit more because this is the next itinerary category. So this one is on Princess Cruise Lines. This is on the Grand Princess in August of 2022, and while it does have that note about the Royal class ships down at the bottom, the real reason that we're going to look at this itinerary is it is not round trip. So these itineraries are quite common, and it is a one-way from Vancouver to somewhere in the Anchorage area. So you might see Seward, you might see Whittier, you might see Anchorage itself, but it's going to be taking you up more to the north. Well, it's not the north of Alaska, but to the north of the Gulf of Alaska, so that you can then, when you disembark the vessel, if you'd like, you could take an overland tour up to Denali National Park. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in just a second. So for the most part, these itineraries that are going out of Vancouver, they do go northbound and southbound, so you could fly in to Anchorage and then make your way down to Vancouver, or you can fly into Vancouver and make your way up to Anchorage. The choice is really yours. If you are planning on combining it with a land portion, then that comes into play. I know some folks have enjoyed doing the land portion first, because it's a little more go, 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 and then they can get on the cruise for a little bit more relaxation before they head home. So again, notice on this itinerary that it is saying that out of Vancouver there are some ships that will not show the Inside Passage. So please just be mindful of that. If it's something that's really high on your list, make sure that you're going on a ship. The Grand Princess would not be in the Royal class ships, so if you happen to book this itinerary, you would be all set. All right, this one, you're going to have calls in Ketchikan and Juneau. You're going to have those on the way up, followed by Skagway. Skagway, again, with the train ride, it's fabulous. For the glacier gazing, you're going to be going to Glacier Bay National Park and then making your way up through the College Fjord and to Whittier, where you disembark and either head to the airport in Anchorage or head up for an overland tour. So this itinerary is great for those that want a chance to get up to Denali National Park. It's also great for those that are a little less worried about flying in and out of two different airports. I know for some people that's a little concerning, or they're just not used to it if they haven't traveled a lot. So this itinerary, maybe start on one of the round trip ones. But in terms of Anchorage is a great city. It is a proper city. And it can get you up there just to see a bit more of Alaska, which is wonderful. So if you're someone that maybe wants to do a little bit more in Alaska, this is a great way to do it. All right, so this itinerary is going to highlight the overland portion. So this is on Holland America Line's Nieuw Amsterdam. This is a June 2022 sailing, and this particular one is a 7-night voyage followed by 2 nights up in the Denali area of Alaska. There are different options on this. There are some with 1 night, there are some with 3 nights. There's a multitude across the different cruise lines as to what's offered for the overland portion of this itinerary. As I said previously, you can do the land-based portion first and then cruise, or you can do the cruise and then the land. So it's either a northbound or a southbound cruise voyage. This particular one starts in Vancouver. It specifically notes that it is scenic cruising in the Inside Passage, so you would be safe to assume that this itinerary will go there. If it doesn't, then cruise changes do happen, but I would be very shocked. Then there's a call in Ketchikan, Juneau, Skagway, and Glacier Bay, so nearly identical to the itinerary that we just looked at. That is pretty common when you're looking at these, that there's going to be pretty standard routes that the ships are going to be going on. It'll sail College Fjord, and then Whittier and Anchorage, and then head up to Denali National Park. So this is a great option if you are looking to explore Alaska more. I have not done the land portion of this ever, and so that is that's on my current bucket list of post-pandemic things to do. I've done pretty much all of the cruise options in Alaska, save for one where I'm saving for the end. So I would love to be able to do this land portion. Everyone that does it says it's incredible. So if you are looking to explore Alaska more, I would personally do the land part first and then end on the cruise to just relax a bit as you head home. But obviously, whichever way works for your schedule is fantastic. So, all right, the next itinerary that I would like to discuss is the category of longer than 7 nights round trip. Now, the particular itinerary that I'm showing on your screen is from Seattle to Vancouver, so it's technically not round trip. There are not many 14-night cruises currently advertised due to CDC regulations that cruises longer than 7 days aren't going in US waters. We'll see how that changes. This itinerary is set to go in August of 2021. Unless the CD changes those regulations, I don't see this particular itinerary happening. However, over the years, there are itineraries like this that are offered. Typically, each cruise line will have about one ship that's offering a similar itinerary to this throughout the summer. All right, so this itinerary, I would say, is best for people that want to explore a bit more of Alaska without having to pack or unpack. So the only disadvantage of doing the train portion of the journey is that you are going to have to pack and unpack an extra time. This offers you the opportunity to have a leisurely 2-week cruise vacation. You only pack and unpack once, and you do get a extra taste of Alaska, going a bit on the north side of the Gulf of Alaska and exploring some of those islands a little bit more. So this particular itinerary starts in Seattle, and it's going to make its way up to places like Ketchikan. The Huna that is listed on this itinerary is another name for Icy Strait Point. So that's the one that has the giant zip line. It's also going to stop in Skagway. It has scenic cruising in both Hubbard Glacier and College Fjord, which are beautiful places. It's going to stop in Seward, and so that's the call that's going to be closest to Anchorage. This one doesn't call properly in Anchorage, which is okay. There's a lot to explore in Seward as well. And then you're going to be going to Homer and Kodiak, which are some fun kind of fishing village feel. So there's if you like fishing, if you like being able to just get off the ship and feel like you're in Alaska, those are some great ports. There you can get off the ship and walk along a beach, and you're basically the only person there. So they're very peaceful feeling. I also, if you look at the sunset, that was taken just a little ways outside of Homer, Alaska at 2 o'clock in the morning in June a few years ago. So because it is just enough further north than the cruises that go to Southeast Alaska, if you're heading in the late June, I know this itinerary is for August, but for say 2022, if you find an itinerary, if you're heading up in the late June, early July category, you can really see some incredible sunsets, and you really get a respect for how far north you are, for how much daylight you are experiencing. So this one, you'll note that the itinerary does say outside passage, even though it does sail back into Vancouver. So again, if you're looking for that inside passage cruising, this might not be the itinerary for you. Okay, As I said, there's not a lot in the longer than 7-day category that's currently advertised because of the CDC regulation. This is one that's offered by Cunard Line. It's scheduled for June of 2022 on the Queen Elizabeth. It is 10 nights. It is round trip out of Vancouver. It does have a stop in Victoria just for a little fun. It's going to Ketchikan, Juneau, Haines. It has 2 glacier calls, so Hubbard Glacier and Glacier Bay, as well as a stop in Sitka. So I would say that this itinerary is great for people that are looking for, they don't have a full 2 weeks, they don't want to head up into Denali, they'd rather just be doing a cruise, but they want to get a little bit more. And so this is going to give you some scenic cruising. It's also going to give you just, it has 2 days of looking at glaciers, which is fantastic. So this could be a great itinerary if you want something a little longer than a week to explore. All right. The next itinerary is a few years ago, they started offering cruises from California to Alaska. So in the past, we've seen them from Los Angeles as well as San Francisco, and these cruises head up and do a lot of the southeast part that you'd see on a typical 7-night round trip out of Seattle or Vancouver. However, you get the bonus of if you're from the southwest of the US, you probably can drive to either San Francisco or Los Angeles, or you have a shorter flight to get there. You will end up with a couple more days at sea than you would on a traditional Alaskan itinerary. You also are able to get a little bit more time in a couple of the ports because you aren't in quite as much of a rush to get back or to get to Victoria and then get to Seattle the next morning. So this particular itinerary starts in San Francisco, then goes to Juneau, Skagway, Icy Strait Point. You'll have your scenic cruising at Tracy Arm, and so that's where your glacier gazing is going to be. You'll have a call in Victoria. I haven't talked about Victoria much yet. Victoria is a beautiful port. There's some really great whale watching there actually, so you can see a lot of orcas in the area. And then the town itself is just vibrant. It's so beautiful, especially at night when it's all lit up. Victoria's a very, very beautiful port. There's also a lot of great food there. So this itinerary is great for someone that either wants a little bit longer cruise, perhaps they don't want to fly and they live close to either Los Angeles or San Francisco. This particular itinerary is offered by Carnival Cruise Line on the Carnival Miracle, and it is a 10-day. It is offered in June of 2022, and I think there's not a lot advertised in this particular category yet for 2022. I think that will change as CDC regulations change, as we see where this pandemic's going. So expect more of these itineraries to be popping up for 2022. And the last itinerary that I'm going to talk about, this one is a offering. This one is in September of 2021. I purposely chose the itinerary that's about as far out as you can go on the off chance that it happens. And the reason that I chose it is because it's a pretty spectacular 1-week itinerary. The reason is the massive amount of scenic cruising that's happening on here. So this is on Seabourn, on the Seabourn Odyssey. It's 7 nights. It is going from Juneau down to Vancouver. So you'd start in Juneau, then you'd head up to Glacier Bay for some glacier gazing, and basically then you are stopping at a variety of fairly small ports combined with literally all scenic cruising. So if you want to sit on your balcony and just feel like you're in the wilderness, I think this would be a great itinerary. Plus you're getting pampered on Seabourn. What could be better? I would definitely keep an eye out for itineraries like this if you want to feel a bit more of Alaska without having to leave the ship. There's so much scenic cruising. The wildlife you would see, bring your binoculars, bring your long lens camera, because it is pretty spectacular. When I saw this itinerary, I got really excited actually. I know it doesn't go up into the north of the Gulf of Alaska, into that portion of Alaska, but it is an itinerary that I haven't experienced in Alaska, so I really found it intriguing. So all in all, what I would say is that there is an Alaskan cruise for everyone. Just think about what you're trying to look for in your adventure. Think about what the people that you're traveling with are interested in. You can't go wrong with any of the itineraries. Just make sure that you figure out what you're looking for and then try to find a cruise that will accomplish that. So in Alaska, you can expect to see wildlife. You can expect to see just incredible mountains and tranquility that you don't experience other places in the world. You will experience rain at some point. And lastly, it is an incredibly popular cruise destination. So if either being around a fair number of people in one of the more popular cruise ports might bother you, or having more families on board might bother you, please try to look into either going on a cruise line that might go to some ports like that seaborne itinerary I just showed you, some less populated as well cruise ports, but then also maybe go on the shoulder seasons, maybe go in May or September when in general it's just less busy. So if you have any questions, if you're looking at an itinerary and you're thinking, hey, who might like this, please leave it in the comments. I am happy to look at different itineraries with you and talk about itineraries. I hope that there are 2021 cruises to Alaska this year. Personally, I hope I'm on them. I would love to get back to Alaska, but otherwise I will hopefully see you on a cruise in 2022 in Alaska. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you learned a little bit about cruising to Alaska. Like I said, if you have any questions, toss them down in the comments. In the description, I left links for all of the itineraries that we discussed today, as well as to my blog post about how to pick an Alaskan cruise on lifeofiris.com. Thank you so much.